This is part 2 of chapter 7, the first global revolution. The partial liquidation of the arms industry thus brings many problems, and conversion of plants and of whole industries to production of consumer and other civilian goods has to be considered urgently. In the Soviet Union and China, large-scale demobilization and conversion efforts have been initiated as a matter of national policy and directed as was to be expected from the center. In both these countries, there is an enormous scarcity of consumer goods, agricultural machinery, medical equipment, machine tools, and the like, so that conversion to the production of such goods was seen as highly desirable. Such endeavors have taken place in conditions of minimal public accountability and of economic chaos, giving little useful experience to countries operating the market economy. It is certain that the retraining of soldiers and armament workers to provide new skills and new attitudes is difficult and incomplete. In contrast, in the Western market economy countries, only Sweden has as yet developed an active policy of conversion. Most of the others have adopted a wait-and-see attitude. Nevertheless, the conversion issue is being discussed actively in most European countries except for France, despite the fact that much of its weapons manufacturing capacity, mostly state-owned, is already idle. Conversion of arms plants to civilian construction is thus the currently accepted remedy, but this, in the industrialized countries, presents many difficulties. Existing laissez-faire attitudes assume that the market forces will take care of the transition. This may be so, but the consequences are likely to be the waste of abandoned and unwanted plants and extensive unemployment. State manufacturing facilities and contractors that have served the needs of the military for long are often incapable of operating new manufactures in a market environment. Grassroots action on the part of employees, trade unions, local communities, etc., holds out some hope in some countries, but is unlikely to secure sufficient institutional backing in the absence of clear governmental policies. Direct interventionist action is unlikely and would, in any case, be inappropriate as a consequence of bureaucratic rigidity. Yet an active role is called for in view of the serious nature of the priority changes involved. The success of any comprehensive conversion scheme will depend heavily on the availability of extensive retraining facilities which only governments can provide. It may well be that governments will be forced to action by the pressure of public opinion and grassroots agitation. This is another example of the need for people's power. The question must now be raised as to what the products of the converted industries would be. Unlike the Eastern European countries and China, which have great shortages of consumer and civilian goods, the Western countries have a manufacturing overcapacity and market saturation, so that indiscriminate conversion would merely deepen existing economic problems and structural unemployment. The overriding need, therefore, is to be clear about the objectives of the new economy, taking account of the possibilities of industrial renewal, which the advanced technologies can provide, the environmental constraints, increasing social demands for better housing and medical care, and the need to create employment. Conversion policies can only succeed if viewed comprehensively. A simplistic approach, which would convert warplane manufacture to that of commercial aircraft, tank factories to automobile plants, and warship and submarine yards to the construction of unwanted merchant shops and tankers, would be economically catastrophic and contribute both to earth warming and the human malaise. Wise statesmanship is needed here to view the situation in its totality. Conversion is simply not enough. It is but one element in the reconstruction of industry to meet the needs of humanity. In brief, disarmament entails fairly high immediate and near-term costs, as it becomes increasingly evident that industrial capacity set up for defense purposes cannot easily be adjusted to supplying long-delayed ordinary civilian consumption needs. We have as yet said little here about how the savings of money and resources which are expected to flow from disarmament should be used. The claims are innumerable and obvious. The satisfaction of national needs for social improvement, protection of the environment, elimination of poverty, aid to development. These are just a few of the candidates. It is probable, however, that much of the financial gain will go rather to tax reduction and the liquidation of national debt. Public expectations for a disarmament dividend are unlikely to be fully met. A few words must be said about a special case, namely the reconversion of retention of power and influence of the many scientists and research engineers who formed the hidden core of armaments research and development. At the height of the armaments race, it was estimated that almost half of the world's research physicists and engineers were engaged in military activities. These were the key people whose work created ever more sophisticated weapons. Although locked in intellectual rivalry, the scientists of the two sides in the Cold War formed a sort of unholy alliance in thinking up new methods of destruction and ever increasingly accurate delivery mechanisms. The military strategists and the armies had to follow their lead into a bewildering technological nightmare, impenetrable even by the decision-making politicians. These scientists were isolated behind walls of secrecy. They lived and worked outside the international scientific community. Although they must include many of the best brains of science, their names are largely unknown. Unlike other scientists, rewards and prestige did not come from sense of achievement in respect of their peers in the international scientific community, but from competitive success within their restricted circle. What then is to happen to these people in a situation of disarmament? Will they be converted and join the ranks of academic and industrial scientists, or will they remain at their work devising still more deadly weapons, hopefully never to be used? It is too early to say, but to date, the latter seems to be the most likely option, probably with decreasing employment and resources. The 1990 yearbook of SIPRI, the authoritative Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, asserts that there is no evidence that there will be a slower pace of technological change in the military area. This key element of the armament system is largely outside public scrutiny and concern. Because it withdraws so many of the best scientific and engineering brains from fully creative activity, it is important that it be discussed and the situation rendered visible. And we'll pick up in the next video.